Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Welcome everybody, this is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany in English only. I'm here today to bring you a startup of the month. This time startup of the month, January 2020. Yes, we are already in 2020, and it's a media partnership with Frankfurt Forward. I would like to welcome my interview guest, Johannes. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fine. How are you doing, Jörn?
I'm doing great, thank you, greatly appreciated. And for everybody who doesn't know the story behind it, Johannes now has to fulfill a promise of his co-founder he made 5 years ago that he'll give me an interview. So, thank you very much for fulfilling the promise, even though it took a little bit of time.
Yeah, sometimes that takes longer in the end. So you got the better part of CrowdDesk with me in the better founder. No, I'm just kidding. Jamal, please, was very eager to take the interview with you, but he's just so deep in loaded with work. So I took the pleasure, and I'm here now to ask every question you have towards me.
Great, let's get started with it. I've been stalking you a little bit on LinkedIn. Everybody who'd like to reach out to you directly, they can go down here in the show notes. There is a link to the Startuprad.io website where we do a blog post for every YouTube interview. And there you will be able to find directly your LinkedIn profile, even though admittedly there are not too many people with your name around on LinkedIn. And I realized you are investment from Kaufmann, so you're originally from mutual fund area, right? How did you end up in startups, and what did you do before CrowdDesk?
Yeah, actually, it was quite a story that took some turns. I grew up not so close to Frankfurt. It's like 50 kilometers away from Frankfurt, so you have a direct train connection, but it's a 1 hour drive. And we always had from the region where I come from, that's Rheinhessen, it's Oppenheim, it's a little wine country. We have, when we go to the hills, we see the skyscrapers, and that's what's actually where all of our three founders, we're all from this region, were attracted to. And when we made our Abitur in 2006, we started trading a little bit with options, with stock options, and gained some experience and made some money. And so we thought, okay, probably let's just go directly into the working space. And so we made a German bank where we gained the title investment for Kaufmann. But as we know now, it wasn't the end. It was actually this time when we found out how undigitized and old-fashioned the industry, the financial industry works. We were there in the company working at a CRM that was still working with MS-DOS, so you didn't have to use any mouse. You could only use some shortcuts to go from one mask to another. I don't know if this term even exists.
May I interrupt you here for everybody who doesn't know MS-DOS? We'll have a link down in the show notes.
Sure, I forgot that there are still some younger people who have never seen they don't know what the save button is in Word or Excel. Yeah, this is the time where MS-DOS comes from. Yeah, and this was actually quite a good experience, because then we saw what actually is possible, and what we found for even we were older now, and we found for actually this was. We thought it must be state of the art, but it wasn't. And so it was a starting point to, make something different. But we didn't go into funding from after the apprenticeship. We made some experiences there, starting a music label, what was not a quite big success because I'm not very talented. But it was an experience. And we made some websites for cities, for companies. But it was not a really scalable startup that we founded until when we studied actually. But that was in Österreich-Winkel, the next small wine region.
I was laughing so hard people couldn't hear it. Music label. I was wondering if I would be singing. Oh no, no! Nobody will listen to it. That's actually a great part of the story. So you came from a mutual fund background, started out with a music label. And then you, admittedly, I'm also from Rheinhessen, so that's the thing we have in common. And then you went on to study at university, right?
Yes, that's where we wanted to collect some more academic experience, and though we thought, okay, probably the European Business School was the best go-to university in those times, similar to the WHU at the moment. And yeah, that we were just normal common students, but it wasn't actually enough. So after 1.5 years, we skipped school and dropped out of the university and started our first startup. It was very out of the focus we had so far, because we hadn't had any focus. It was, I told you, music label, making websites. There was nothing that was prepared us for that, but it was a startup that took place in the municipality financing, so the financing of cities and small towns. So something really, if somebody had told me that 1 year before that we do something like that, I would told him that he's crazy or something like that.
Admittedly, within financial services, financing for municipalities regularly does get the label of very boring. How did you get from investment funds to music to very boring? How did this happen? What happened?
Actually, it was the story started in Quickborn, so that's a small city in northern Germany. It was the height of the financial crisis, so 2009, something like that, 2008, 2009. And the city wasn't able to collect any money from banks. So they were just running out of money, even though they had a good investment grade at that stage. But the money, the banks just didn't have any liquidity. And the mayor of the city just called a town hall meeting and said, okay, we need some money. I think it was like 4 million to build a new school. And we have that all in our budget, and we have the plan, and we have the contracts, but the banks aren't able to hand out the liquidity. And then the citizens of the town said, yeah, okay, we have liquidity. We don't feel safe with banks at the moment. Let's make a deal. And they collected the money in like 3 days from the citizens. The interest was paid directly to the citizens, so everybody was happy in the end. The only thing they forgot about is the regulatory. So the BaFin, the German regulator, wasn't he wasn't a friend of the system, because actually when you do something like that, you need like a bank license, and obviously a city doesn't have a bank license.
I see. Yes, the BaFin, Bundesaufsichtsamt für Finanzdienstleistungen, for everybody, is the German version of the SEC, for example, FSA in the UK, Financial Service Authority. So they stepped in and played the bad guy, because in German it's regulated that if you have to build up something, if you have to build up an accounting and all the system to take other people's money in, you have to be licensed as a bank. That's paragraph number 1 of the German banking law. So they violated that. And how did this story unfold?
Yeah, the good thing is the BaFin told them they aren't able to redo it, but they didn't have to give the money back. So it was declared legal in the end, but not for the future. But we saw actually there's something happen. There was some magic in it, because there was a direct connection between a city and the citizens. And we thought, okay, probably you can do something more out of that. And that's why we founded Leih deiner Stadt Geld, so lend money to your municipality, to your city. Very complex names. Some of the learnings I probably have is to stick to easier names and to shorter names, because you have problems at edges you never would have foreseen. So when you want to print some business cards or something like that, we are conflicted with a long name, but that's another story. And we thought, okay, probably if we build a web platform where a city can put in their new school or their new investment for a new sporting facility, something like that. So everybody would gain from that if the money would flow directly from the citizen to the city, and the interest wouldn't pay to any foreign bank in Frankfurt or whatever. And the thing is, it was technically not so hard. It was, for us, it was hard because there were only 3 founders. One of us was the technical guy. The big challenge was to overcome the regulatory challenges, so that you really have a legal system where that works. In the end, we had to include a bank for one logical second in the process, so that the BaFin was able to give us the good to go.
Admittedly, crowdfunding within Germany is always including a bank, because you need the bank to basically take the risk and then from their balance sheet separate it again. That was my the last update I had on it, right?
You talk about crowd lending. This is the German term for when you can do direct contracts between lenders and borrowers, but then they have to have a certain part in the contract where where it's actually like equity. So it's not a loan you hand out. It's more like equity. It's mezzanine capital between equity and debt, and that's just a small portion where the BaFin says, okay, if you hand out that sort of contract, you will be good to go. Yeah.
Everybody who would like to learn a little bit about mezzanine equity and that, go down here in the show notes towards the blog. There we'll have some links from Wikipedia, Investopedia, and so on and so forth. Admittedly, the title of the startup is a little bit bulky in English. Lend money to your municipality, as well as in German, leih deine Stadt Geld. But you're still around. How did you proceed? How did it work?
Yeah, it was quite a challenge to, as 3 young students dropping out of the university, to convince mayors all over Germany that they trust in a system that doesn't work with banks. Or we included a small upcoming bank, but that nobody knew at that time. We talked to the KfW at those times. That's the biggest German municipality lender, but they actually said, yeah, we can't work with a small startup. In the end, they were convinced, but that was like 4 years later, so it was a little bit too late for us. But we won't be. We are very happy that they did it in the end. And yeah, it was actually, the challenge was to make the sales, to really convince a mayor to do it now, because they all said, oh, good idea, we have a project coming up in 4 or 5 years. That's not a time you want to wait. If you're a young startup, you need results very fast. And yeah, but we stick to it. We pushed through, and then we convinced one city. It was Österreich-Winkel in the end, but it was no connection to the university. It was just actually coincidence. And yeah, they gave us the chance to put a project on the website, on the platform. It was we were collecting money for the fire station, so really something basic where nobody had something against it. It was a really good project. We collected 80,000 euros in a couple of weeks. That was the target, so it was quite a big success for us, because all the technical stuff worked, the regulatory stuff worked. What didn't work in the end was actually that we thought now the knot was open, or the challenge was overcome, and all the cities in Germany would call us and said, "Okay, great idea. Can I come to your platform and you make some revenue with me?" Yeah, that didn't happen. So there were some calls, but they all said, "Good idea. Now it works." We still have the project only in 3, 2, or 4 years. Yeah, and that's we didn't have the patience or the money to wait that long, and that's why we started actually the second crowdfunding platform, equity-based crowdfunding platform, with Leih deiner Umweltgeld, so lend money to your environment. This was actually not so far from our strategy we had in the beginning, because when we when we first when we made our first business plan, in the beginning we hopped from one business plan competition to another to gain some money. That was quite successful. We had in the first strategy book, on the first strategy paragraph that we wrote, hey, when we make Leih deiner Stadt Geld to a big success, there are other niches we could fill. So lend money to your environment, lend money to your boss, to your company, to your local football club. So there were like many ideas where we could go in with that idea. But we saw with Leih deiner Stadtgeld and Leih deiner Umweltgeld that it's really hard to make the sales if you don't have any network, if you don't have any projects, if you don't have any investors. That was all we had to build up from the beginning. But we made it with the first two platforms. They are still running today. So it's Leih deiner Stadtgeld is the first startup partner of the KfW, and Leih deiner Umweltgeld is the biggest platform for green investments in Germany. So we showed that it worked. But what we learned from that is that we as a company, we can't scale the sales process. But what we could scale, that's what we do today, is the software part and the regulatory part. So that we give all the tools that everybody, literally anybody, can build his own platform and collect money via his own website, via his own platform.
And that's how we finally end up at CrowdDesk, I have the feeling.
Smart, yeah.
Admittedly, at the time I met you guys was when you're still around Leih deiner Stadtgeld, but everybody who has been complaining about corporate sales cycles of 6 months, listen to that, it can be up to 5 years. So no confusion why you did something else, but is it now running? Did actually all the cities who said, yeah, we'll have a project in 4 years, in 5 years, did they actually come to the platform in time?
Actually not, because we weren't pushing that, because we never made any revenue with Leih deiner Stadtgeld, but it was a good showcase for us. It was good PR we made with that. We made it to the German biggest television station. We made it in big German newspapers, even some international newspapers, because the idea was quite compelling to many people. And we gained the former German Minister for Finance, Hans Eichel, to convince him with the idea, because it actually makes sense that you make the direct connection between these two. But if you don't earn any money with it, because we're not a charity, or we're not doing it for charity, we knew that we had to make the next step. We always thought about cooperating with the KfW, because they have the sales network anyway. They are talking to the cities every day. But in the end, we just have to be honest to ourselves that it is just too... how do I put that? Yeah, it's just too costly to have so many salespeople working on the cities. They would do it, but you have to push them, and because the mayors and the camera, the tax people, or the financial guys in the cities, they have so much work to do that anything they do out of their comfort zone is just a big stretch for them. And so we said, okay, let's put the platform up and running. If any city comes to us, we will be happy to help them. But we moved on to next stages in our startup life.
And now you are offering a crowdfunding white label service. Basically, you cannot get the crowdfunding there, not a connection, but you can get the software at your company, right?
That's right. Actually, what people come to us and say, okay, we want to collect money via the internet. That's all sort of project from all the visions we had in the beginning, from football clubs, from small mid-sized companies up to big banks. They use the software. We have two customer groups. The first one are really the project that do it probably just once or twice in their lifetime. So if they have a big event in their company history, like probably it's a startup, they need money in the beginning, or it's a company that is overtaken by the next generation, then they need some money to give it to the people who sell it. Or we have a big investment case, they build up a new factory. That's all sort of all use cases. What we know is that every project, every company needs some money in some stage. We don't know exactly when, and we don't know exactly for what, but we offer for all that stages and all that cases, we offer the software. The other part of our customers are actually the guys who transfer capital from one place to another. So like banks or big platforms, and they do it in a professional way. So they take out a little portion of the money they transfer, and these are like the DKB Bank, the GLS Bank, the Volks- und Raiffeisenbanken from Germany, and some European platforms. They collect money all over Europe for projects like startups, like small and mid-sized companies. I'm repeating myself. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes, one of the most intriguing products you have is, we talked about it in the past, it's the GoFundMe button. That's something I really, really like. Can you talk a little bit about that before we get into what Frankfurt means for you and CrowdDesk?
Yeah, actually, when we started programming the software, Jamal said something like, it was like 2011, 2012. Hey, wouldn't it be nice if every company could just put an invest now button, GoFundMe button on their website and start collecting money via the internet? We didn't laugh at him, but it was like a little megalomaniac at that time. So we said, yeah, okay, that's a long way to go. Actually, today we made that happen. So if any company comes to us, we give them the opportunity to install a GoFundMe button on their website, and we make sure that the funding is regulatory compliant. Because what you have to keep in mind is that if you sell something via the internet, like products, like something you produce with your hands, something you just sell once or you just sell via the platform, like probably Shopify does that. They just give out shops, like online shops that you can implement in your website. It's very easy because it's always the same process. It doesn't matter if you buy shoes or if you buy a fridge, it's always the same checkout process. When you collect money via the internet, it's something totally different. It's up to 6 variables change that process. It changes if the company is small or big, how much money it collects, from whom it collects, in which regulatory framework does it collect. So we all have to make sure that it still looks very easy, but as you know, when something looks very easy, there's some time and some love put into the process, and that's what we make sure today, that we have a really easy process that every company can collect money via their website with just implementing a small button.
you talked about the variables depending on where you are and all of that stuff for the GoFundMe button. I would be curious, is there any legal reason a company from the US, from Australia or Singapore or Brazil could not use it right now on the website?
It does depend on where they collect money, because the BaFin or the SEC, they always collect these small investors in their country. That's their main goal. And you could, as an Australian company, theoretically collect money in Germany or in France or whatever framework we offer at the moment. That's almost most of almost all European countries, as long as they stick to the German rules. So the German regulator or the France regulator sets out you have to write a prospectus or not. The prospectus has to be so long. You have to put that warning sign on your website, or you don't have to. And when you obey that rules that we give you as a software, it's totally doable for any company in the world. It changes if you want to collect money as an Australian company in Australia, because then we have to adapt the system to the Australian regulatory scheme, what we haven't done so far. So there are still some steps to take for us.
You cover the United States?
Not yet, no.
Okay, I see. I think about you enough with the software. Of course, it was totally clear that I won't let you off easy when I had to wait 5 years for making an interview. Nonetheless, we are talking as media partners of Frankfurt Forward, and I would be curious why you guys are in Frankfurt and what Frankfurt means for you.
Yeah, actually, what I told in the beginning holds still truth today. We were always looking from our small city up to the Frankfurt skyscrapers. Thought, okay, we want to be there, we want to work there, we want to leave an impression on the city, and this is what still drives us today. So I live in Frankfurt now. I have my girlfriend in Frankfurt now, so I'm totally became a Frankfurter, and that's not easy to say for somebody who comes from the other side of the Rhine. So this is really, we adopted the city, and I love it because for me it connects the two things internationally. The international touch you can get here. Everybody says that, but it holds true. I can be in 20 minutes at the airport and fly to actually every city in the world. And on the other side, it's not so huge that you still have a local culture. When I go to Sachsenhausen and drink Apple with my boys, I still feel like it's a small city, small community, and this is really what makes Frankfurt for me probably the best city that I could have founded my company in.
I see. There is just one goofball question. To kind of wrap it up, our interview, we're now recording close to half an hour, but I have to admit, it was quite interesting so far. And I would be curious if you could describe your life either as a book title or movie title, or a combination of both. What would it be and why? Don't worry, you can still take your time and think. We'll keep the recording running and get some kind of Jeopardy music to run under it.
Okay. A book or a movie title?
For example, for me, I always say I'm a combination of Pinky and Brain and Forrest Gump.
Yeah, but it's actually quite catchy. What probably a book that inspired me and that really has some truth in it. I don't know if anybody knows it, but it's Freakonomics. It's like the economics behind things that you couldn't explain in the first thing, and why does it describe our life or describe our company is that we build up a new way to get capital out of the system, and there's something you can't see so far because it just doesn't happen so often, but it happens more often every day. And I hope to once be a chapter in one of these books, so that anybody says, okay, or everybody can read, yeah, actually they made a difference, and they changed something macroeconomically. And that's probably what first comes to my mind. Sorry, I don't have any more creative answer at the moment.
Don't worry, everything's totally fine. Freakonomics is a very good book. I read it as well, and they actually do also have a podcast which we link down here in the show notes. And what I found interesting is if you apply in Freakonomics economic theory to like all sort of crimes, it actually makes sense, because if there's a lot of drive-by shootings, the drug dealer at the next corner will demand more money because the risk is higher. It's the same logic as in banking, even though applied in a very, very different situation. I strongly recommend it. You can also get it as an audiobook. If you go down here in the show notes, we have affiliate links of Audible as well. Any last word, anything you'd like to say about your co-founder who made 5 years ago a promise you have to fulfill?
The next interview, he will be here, and he will do the interview, and he will. I won't tell him any question, and I hope you have some mean questions still left for him.
So tune in to the next interview with CrowdDesk 2025.
Hopefully.
Great. It was such a pleasure having you. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Jörn. Thanks. Bye.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.